Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Rosa and Rubini podcast, Making Sense of This World. My name is Manas Chavla, and as always, I'm really pleased to be joined by CEO and Head of Research, Brunel Rosa. This week, yet again, we are speaking about Elon Musk, but this time his broader global role affecting the domestic, but also the international political situation in different corners of the world. Is Elon Musk a Steve Bannon 2.0, or is he potentially someone even more consequential? Um, Bruno, last week, Musk has announced his support for various sort of far-right governments across Europe, amongst them the AfD in Germany, with German elections coming up, in just a few weeks' time. That'll be significant. But the fact that Musk made this comment on X, and given how much influence he has to sway politics nowadays, it seems quite significant. So what is the background behind some of this?
So, Musk has been extremely vocal on politics in the last few months. We all know that. The US is well known. He's gonna even take a government position after the 20th of January for the Doge department. Um, but he's been equally vocal on foreign political systems. First and foremost, in the UK, where he has been attacking Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, almost on a daily basis, if not more frequently, on various issues, including when he was a chief prosecutor. And most of these things are borderline fake news or wild exaggerations, and definitely something is stirring up for his own benefit. But Starmer has recently won an election. He has a super strong majority. He might not be the strongest character out there, but he has enough of an institutional setting to resist. What is much more at risk at the moment is the German situation because they are going to have elections in just over a month. It's the first snap, let's call it snap, let's say earlier election since 1983 from the era of Helmut Kohl. We are talking about almost the prehistory of the German political system for most people. I remember as it was yesterday, but for most people, it's really way back in the days. Um, and, um, and it's very uncommon because in order to call an early election, you really need a government collapse and the impossibility of forming a new government, a new coalition, and so on. So it's very delicate. And we have seen in Eastern Germany, and we have published about that a good performance of the AfD, the far-right, almost neo-Nazi party, and its left-wing counterpart from the former Linke politician, when they fare very well, then forming coalitions to govern becomes almost impossible. That was in Eastern Germany when these uh, parties together almost have 50% of the votes. So extremely high. Now, if this were to be the case also at national level, you can imagine the repercussions this could have. Germany may become ungovernable, as other countries have become, such as France. And this is not a small thing. Germany is the largest Eurozone economy, the largest European economy, one of the anchors of stability at the global level. It cannot afford to have Italian style political instability. And by the way, Italy is showing some remarkable political stability recently, quite uncharacteristically. So Merz may win the elections for the CDU-CSU, but forming a coalition may become extremely problematic if the AfD does particularly well. And even on X, Musk called Angela Weidel, who's the leader of the AfD, possible new chancellor of Germany. Can we imagine the catastrophic consequences of something like this happening? And even mentioning the possibility of that happening, uh, what means, right? Projecting in people's mind the possibility that such a controversial political leader may become chancellor. I mean, we are talking about literally the dissolution of Europe as we know it, and this cannot go unchecked.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Elon Musk's sort of political interference doesn't stop there. And in the name of free speech, it's occurred in various other countries, including the UK, including Italy. To tell me more about sort of his interventions in these countries, and have they differed significantly from what's happened in Germany, or is it part of the same pattern?
No, it's the same pattern. Um, I mentioned the UK previously, but more in detail, what has happened is he has a sort of romance with the UK party leader, Nigel Farage, until changes mind and say, maybe the Reform Party needs a new leader because Farage doesn't have what it takes. Simply because Farage said that the UK Reform Party cannot afford to go full anti-Islam and anti-immigrants and so on, for the very simple reason that if you look at the growing communities in the country, they actually come from immigration and from countries with an Islamic background. So effectively, if you were to go straight into that direction, um, uh, he will condemn Reform Party to irrelevance in coming years. So it's kind of a political calculus that makes perfect sense for a party leader. But then, as usual, Musk intervenes in an aggressive way. Say, the party, is not well led by this political leader and needs to go, something like this. And this is his friend. Imagine what he's saying to Starmer. And he's still willing probably to commit his 80 millions to reform. But you can imagine when the money arrives, then it dictates the political line and clearly also the choice of the political leader. And it may not be Farage. In Italy, the situation is slightly different because uh, the Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is very proud of being a good friend of Elon Musk, and they had repeated interactions in the past. And actually, the news emerged that Musk is about to sign a 1.5 billion contract for his satellites to rent, so to speak, his satellites to Italian authorities for the most sensitive communication, including those of intelligence services and military and this and that. This is kind of already half of a scandal in the country and comes after a few interventions by Musk on the on open trials against politicians, including Salvini, or the decisions by the judiciary on Albanian refugee centers that have been opened somehow half legally by the Italian government, definitely against the opinion of the European Union that believes that these things needs to remain within the EU rather than being externalized to other countries. So, but it doesn't stop there, and you have to understand that if Italy falls, if Germany falls, France, we already know the situation is highly unstable. There's no stable government at the moment. Macron might be resigning way before because the eventual elections 2027. Le Pen might be coming president. Italy, France, Germany. That's the core of the Eurozone and of the European Union. If they were to fall in the hands fully of right wing or far right, even more so populist slash nationalist parties, as propelled by Elon Musk, that means the end of the European integration process with all the consequences that we can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Musk is a much more powerful, possibly much more malign actor than what was the effect of Steve Bannon during the first presidency of Donald Trump, and effectively preceding it as well. How strong do you think that connection is?
So, for those who are not fully up to speed with the story of Steve Bannon or forgot, which would be a good thing. Um, Steve Bannon used to be an extremely powerful person during the first Trump administration. He was effectively the ideologue behind MAGA, Make America Great Again movement, that actually hijacked the Republican Party that used to be institutional, centrist, conservative, um, pro, pro business, effectively the center of gravity of the American political system, into what is today a faction of populist nationalists that are effectively willing to agree to almost anything that Trump says, even if it makes absolutely no sense. Um, and he's taking power for some time as an advisor to the president until what he said, his actions, and so on were too much, even for Trump, who sacked him. And they had a huge clash. Then the assault to Capitol Hill on the 6th of January took place, and Bannon was asked by Congress to testify. But since he lied in Congress or refused to answer, he was actually prosecuted and sentenced to 4 months of prison for contempt of Congress. So quite a serious crime. He spent 4 months in prison, then he went out and said, I'm ready to start all over again. And clearly, since his preferred candidate, Trump, is on his way up, he has restarted his political activities. But guess what? He has found on his way a way more influential and powerful person in the name of Elon Musk. And it's doing exactly what he used to do, which is creating, that was the idea by Bannon, to create a populist international, so effectively exporting the populist movement, proudly called that way, instead of being considered sort of an insult, around the globe. He has made lots of inroads into Europe when parties such as the Rassemblement National, the AfD, Brothers of Italy, Lega, and so on, were all summoned by Bannon at various stages. Um, and guess what? Elon Musk is following more or less the same path. But of course, with the huge difference that he has on his pocket a huge financial arsenal that Bannon didn't have. So at the time, there was the need to rely on Russia, who financed almost all those parties, directly, indirectly. That was half confirmed, half denied, but at the very least, suspicion has always been there. At this point, there's no even need to get this money because Elon Musk has as much money as he can possibly want. If he were to write a check of 80 million to Reform UK, it would be just a small drop in the gigantic ocean of his personal fortune. So this really tells you what's going on there. So I see Elon Musk taking the place of Bannon to try to do exactly the job that he was doing, which is kind of creating somebody called the reactionary, somebody called the ultra conservative, far right, whatever, international. So to make sure that there are people likely minded around the world. And I think it's going to be more successful than Bannon was. It's not a surprise. Guess what? That the two guys now hate each other and they had more than an occasion to clash in the last few weeks. Some people read this as fractures within MAGA movement. It's not. It's not. There's no fracture there. It's just the old fashion. I would say struggle for power that always happens, and so there cannot be two closest advisors to Trump. There can only be one. And at the moment, I think this is Elon Musk, not Steve Bannon.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like now that Elon Musk has gotten a taste of what political power feels like on a global scale, his pursuit of it will be relentless. And, I wonder if this is the result of Donald Trump and Elon Musk collaborating, and we have sort of, already this amount of volatility before Trump has taken up
Yes.
office, I wonder what it'll be like after he's taken up office, and possibly if it'll be even, sort of more consequential if Elon Musk and Trump were to fall out and pursue, slightly different agendas, but roughly within the same sphere of populist politics. So more than enough to watch, for the many, at least for the next 4 years, if not beyond that, as we go into Trump's second term. As always, Brunello, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Very much. Until next time.